again. It's Stephanie here. I'm so happy that you've come. I've got Walter Ong for you today, something that maybe you haven't heard too much about unless you listened last week, because it was the first time I mentioned him, at least from this book. We're going to continue with another very short couple of lines from this book. Excellent book, by the way. If you want to read something meaty and don't think lighthearted, think meaty and heavy. It's good. It's really good. It'll make you think. He says this on page 166. The depersonalization of space has been due not merely to its disassociation from sound, but also to its association with vision. For vision of itself, employed in isolation from other senses, depersonalizes relations. Think of movies. How personal are you with the characters, right? Vision. This fact can be ascertained quite readily. In any culture, it is a risky business to look at another person for any length of time, except under certain circumstances. Children must be taught this very early. Don't stare. The steady stare is worse than the physical insult. Looking fixedly at another person has normally the effect of reducing him to a surface, a non-interior, and thus to a status of a thing, a mere object. One can, however, look at another without limit of time so long as a conversation is going on. Speech establishes the specifically human relation that takes the edge off, the cruelty of vision. What do you think about that idea? First of all, the images that this man created with his words are just phenomenal, right? So, speech establishes the specifically human relation that takes the edge off the cruelty of vision. Think about that. When you get to know someone that is very unappealing to you in terms of looks, in terms of exterior, and you hear from that person and you develop a friendship with that person, and you go back and forth speaking with that person, sharing each other's thoughts, ideas, your mind and your heart. All of a sudden, you stop seeing that person. Your vision of that person isn't what she or he looks like. Maybe there's a deformity or a feature that is repellent to you. It's so strange to talk about it this way, but I know this is how we all think. So there's faces that attract us and there's faces that don't attract us. But you get to know that person. You hear the sound of their voice and your heart lights up, your mind, your spirit. You just jump like that person. I care about that person. I want to be with that person. You're not seeing the exterior. You're seeing or perceiving the interior. And I think that's what Ong is talking about. And that's, I think, what he means when he talks about the cruelty of vision. When we see something clearly for what it is, are we really seeing it for what it is, or are we seeing it for its objectiveness or its its thingness, if you will? And we really need speech to take us into the interior, to get to know that person's heart. Why is that so hard? Some of you are listening saying, it's not hard. I do it all the time. I love it. And that is great. And you've been practicing that ever since a certain time when you knew that that's how you connect. And that's great. Not everybody has that experience. In fact, the dread that so many feel from speech making, from getting up in public, even if it's in front of 4 or 8 or 12 people, and speaking aloud, saying something aloud, is terrifying to many people. And they feel this same way about conversation. Maybe a little bit easier one-on-one, but it's just awkward and reticent about conversation. And I can't help but think that part of that is what sound reveals, where vision, doesn't reveal. Vision masks what's inside. Sound reveals it, and there's that reciprocal nature of sound that creates a kind of give and take, a back and forth. It welcomes it, it invites it, and so you've got that. When he talks about the depersonalization of space, he's talking about how that draws us away from each other, this depersonalization of space. And if you think about it, think about what our social media do. Besides all the fun things that our social media do, there's just too much research coming forward to point to the danger of our social media, especially for young people. I was listening to Jonathan Haidt today on a podcast, and he was making a very strong point in all of his research. I believe he's a psychologist. That why don't we have a law that says, before 16, people aren't allowed to get social media? That sounds almost ludicrous right now, but he was making some very, very good points about that. And I think Ong came long before that, but Ong is laying the foundation for that by talking about depersonalization. When we have a virtual space, we don't have a space that's anchored in time, where we embody, where we're with each other in body and in time. Our human presence is together, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. It depersonalizes the situation, which of course is one of the big reasons that we point to why there's so much vitriol in social media, why there's so much lack of respect and unkindness and just rude behavior. It's because that space is depersonalized. We don't have a space to be actually together. We're just thinking or imagining that space. And most of us aren't in that imagining that space. We're just reacting to something that we read, to vision. So these things I tell you and I read to you because I think that they have great relevance for all of our situations, not just our communication behavior, though that's very, very important, not just our communication behavior at work or in family or whatnot, but in our deepest, most intimate relationships, where we need communication. We need not the depersonalization that's happening to us, but we need to personalize things. Like I'm thinking of, was it really the 17th century where they would melt some, not candle wax, it was called sealing wax, and they would melt it on the end of an envelope and put a seal there, or put their finger there, their thumb there, to personalize it. This is from me. I know Paul said that in some of his letters in the New Testament. I write this with my own hand. Trying to personalize a bond, a relationship, and to continue to personalize that is part of the work of relationship. And the relationships don't just come to us, as you know. Friendships don't just come to us and stay in our lives like where I dream of Jeannie. We wish it so, and we wish that it's granted to us, and we blink it into existence, and then it's there like a product, like something we can go to, like something that's on the shelf. No, we have to keep pouring into our friendships. We need to keep the reciprocity going, that give and take. I give, you give. Because if we stop giving ourselves, if we stop sharing our life, if we stop reaching in, we can say we have a friendship, but I wonder, do we really? I struggle with this sometimes. I know I have one of my good friends who I've been friends with decades. We go like really hot and talking all the time for like 3 months or 12 months. And then we don't talk or see each other or send a card or anything for 5 years. And it's my fault. Well, I'll just admit that right now, because if I get nothing back at all, I don't get a text, I don't get a phone call, I don't get a visit, I don't get a card, I don't get any acknowledgement that I'm alive in this person's life. After a certain amount of time, I just figure they don't want to hear from me. So I pull back. That's why I say it's my fault. Because really, if I'm going to practice what I'm preaching, I'm going to go for that person, and I'm going to not try to force a friendship, but I'm going to say, I know that we're friends. We're good friends. Where are you? Where have you been? Why okay, so you don't send Christmas cards. Okay, so you don't send birthday cards. Okay. But not even a text, So that's what I'm talking about when I draw from Ong and talk about the depersonalization. of space. We have to have grounded space for our friendships, for our love life, for our family life. We have to, um, even like I'm thinking a classroom as a grounded space where we can be together to discuss and unpack things. I noticed such a stark difference between my on-ground classroom situations and my online. You know, the material is the same, the assignments are mostly the same, the professor is mostly the same, and the students are mostly the same. But what a vastly different experience when you're kind of out there without a space, and the only space you have is where you write, and someone will meet you in that writing and respond to it. I mean, it's a wonderful thing if that's all we have. If we have nothing else, then that's all we have. I'd rather have letters and text than nothing. But such a different experience being able to engage with one another, look at each other in the eyes, not stare each other down, but connect. You can make such a connection with a person through their eyes, right? And through their voice. Anyway, that's part of what Walter Ong is talking about in this fantastic book, The Presence of the Word. I wanted to talk to you about it a couple times this month, and now I have. I hope that you'll enjoy it. And I hope you'll tell me what you think about that. What do you think about the difference between sound, speech, and vision or seeing? Do you make as much of it as I do and as Ong does? I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, have a great day, okay? And I hope to see you back here very soon. God bless you. Bye now.